Hello, my name is Father Timothy Tighe, and this is our 217th segment of our Journey of Faith in the Light of the Cross as we begin our 37th chapter. We look up on our screen and we see our theme. As the sap flows through the vine to grow branches and grapes, so the life of Jesus flows through his disciples to give life and grow the church, uniting believers to the Father and the Spirit in an eternal oneness. We go to our next screen and we read, in John 14, Jesus used many words to calm the disciples over his leaving. Let not your hearts be troubled, and believe, for my Father's house has many abodes, that's apartments, that I will prepare for you. When a son married, rooms were attached to the family house as a new living branch of the father, and the firstborn son usually took care of it. But Thomas asked, where? And Jesus says, you have walked with the way, the truth, and the life for 3 years, and you do not know? The disciples are not satisfied. So Philip says, show us. Jesus said, if you see me, you see the Father. We go on to our next screen and we read, the disciples were blinded and confused by troubled hearts. They certainly had them. So they say in effect, no, we do not see. Jesus said, if you ask me anything, I will do it. But they answered, we have asked you, but you say I just explained it. John 14 writes that Jesus then used the word love many times in the book of Glory, and we'll see it again and again repeated. Verse 15, the Father will give you a paraclete who will abide in you, lead and guide you. I will not leave you orphans. I will not abandon you. We go on to our next screen and we read, whoever works my commands loves me. Whoever loves me, the Father will love. I will love him and reveal myself to him. You see the repetition of the word love. Jude said, why not show yourself to all? And Jesus said, whoever loves me and does my word, the Father will love and we will abide with him. Now, Jude's question shows that even the word love did not light the way of the disciples out of their darkness. Jesus sees that he needs an image to free them from the darkness. This is very important. We go on to our next screen. So Jesus says, peace be with you, my peace I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled or afraid. This is the end of John 14 chiasm, okay? They are still confused, however. So Jesus says, the world's ruler is at hand, but the world must know that I love the Father. Let us rise up from here. Now, Jesus is going to keep speaking, but he's going to use an image. Jesus gives them an image in John 15 that excites their feelings to help their troubled hearts. We go to our next screen and we read, John 15, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He cuts away branches not bearing fruit, so those who abide have space to bear more fruit. This is what pruning means. You are already pruned by the Logos, the Word, which I have spoken to you. We remember Jesus' word drove many disciples away in John 16. So there were many disciples, but when Jesus said, you must eat my flesh and drink my blood, many went away. So the cluster was cleaned out and many left. As a branch cannot bear fruit unless attached to the vine, so you cannot bear fruit unless you abide in me. We go on to our next screen. When the disciples walked with Jesus, their blood flowed with energy and excitement. It bonded them, like soldiers are bonded as they pour out their blood, sweat, and tears, struggling to complete their mission. Now, this image reflected the image of a vine producing big grapes that pour out their blood. There are no words in Hebrew for juice. It's the blood of the grape. And we have to get used to that because that's what we have to hear. As soldiers are cut away, which means they're killed, other soldiers heroically rise up and pour out their blood. This is the image of the vine. So the image of a pruned cluster growing bigger and pouring out more grape blood can apply also to the disciples. They are going to be persecuted when they proclaim Jesus. We go on to our next screen and we read, recall John 15 is still a Passover Last Supper meal. There's still a table. And John does not use the words of consecration from Matthew and Mark that are said at every Mass. This is the cup of my blood, which will be poured out for you and for many, which means the Gentiles. But poured out is the essence that we're looking for of the image. These words fit John 15, for grapes are grown to pour out grape blood, which symbolized that Passover the Judeans shared a separate bloodline, so they would only share wine with one another. But Jesus will pour out a universal bloodline that proclaims that all humans are one in the Father. You must drink my blood. We go on to the next screen. Jesus' image of the vine will be fully understood only after the resurrection, but his image does excite and lift them, for they stop asking questions. It's a very difficult image to understand, but I hope we're struggling with it. When you become disciples and bear fruit, you glorify the Father. As the Father loves me, so I also love you. Now, abiding in the Father is feeling his presence and love, which is difficult for all of us. The disciples probably were unsure of these feelings, which we are. We go on to our next screen, and we read, the Father poured himself out, creating a world that continues to reproduce and flow into new life. This is important because the ancient understanding of God is he's perfect and immutable. He is unchanging, not a flowing God. When a Dutch priest proposed that the world was created by a big bang, secularists sneered at him. But he was right and accepted. For creation continually pours itself out like God, regenerating and reproducing. But sin broke the life-giving flow to the eternal oneness. So can creation overflow and cause a mess. Jesus came to redeem creation's natural flow by pouring himself out to reconnect the natural order to the eternal order. We go on to our next screen and we read, by the time John is published in 95 AD, later disciples had heroically risen up to give their life to the church, and their blood flowed with energy and excitement. Even if a disciple turned and betrayed the unit, others heroically rose up to pour themselves out like soldiers. I tell you this, that my joy might be in you and your joy might be complete. Jesus is very happy thinking of this in the future. 13, no greater love can one have than to lay down his life for his friends. So Jesus knows that his disciples will rise to the occasion and follow him, bravely giving their lives for others. Jesus could foresee the heroism of the early church, and it lifted him up and the disciples at the Last Supper. We go on to our next screen and we read, by pouring himself out on the cross, Jesus imaged God pouring himself out to create and redeem the world. This fits the image of God as a vine pouring sap through branches to grow grapes, to pour out his lifeblood. Jesus' blood poured out on the cross and caused a mess. Yet it poured out a life-giving love to all the world. Paul says, Jesus redeemed us by taking on the curse of the cross, that Gentiles might receive the blessings of Abraham, and that's in Galatians 3:13. God redeems messes to blessings, even messes caused by pouring out one's love. Some of us in awkward and uncomfortable ways cause messes as we try to love others. But God says, keep doing it because I can redeem it. We go on to our next screen and we read, as the sap flows through the vine to grow branches and grapes, so the life of Jesus flows through his disciples to give life and grow the church, uniting believers to the Father and the Spirit in an eternal oneness. I thank you so much for joining us on this 217th segment of our journey of faith in the light of the cross.
Fill my cup, fill it up and make